everyone, welcome to Virtual Chelsea. I'm Lucy, founder of Vail Floristry. This year we were meant to be doing the floral installation of the tunnel at RHS Chelsea. We were going to do a big floral ceiling, but don't worry, we will be there next year and I cannot wait. But for today, I'm going to teach you exactly how to bring the British countryside, one, into your homes, but maybe on your doorstep, but also exactly how to arrange everything in certain vases. May seem a bit daunting at the beginning, but I'm going to teach you exactly where to start. So let's begin. So at home, I have cut down lots of foliage. Lots of euphorbia, lots of cow parsley. Our garden actually used to be a herb garden that was owned by Culpeppers. Cow parsley actually is one of my favourites to use in vases, as it gives this sort of pretty dancing, fairy-like part to the vase. And then I've also got some hawthorn. Now hawthorn can be a bit nasty because it's got these terrible thorns on them. However, if you chop them down before you literally lay out your stems, they work so beautifully in vases, and actually for all my weddings and events they're the perfect finish for an urn. When you're cutting all your flowers, get lots of foliage and get lots of different textures and colours. You know, we're so lucky what we've got in our countryside. It's just such a shame not to really make the most of it and bring it home. I would just go wild. There's no set way, don't be too nervous about cutting things, well, apart from obviously the hawthorn, but have fun. Go and choose your flowers. So the next step is you want to choose your vase, and for me, I find you want to have one big showstopper vase to put somewhere in the house that everyone's going to see and really marvel. In order to show them off to the greatest amount, and with not as many because you probably don't want to chop down too much, I would choose a vase with a smaller edge. And the reason why you do this is that, one, you can rest your flowers on the edge of the vase easier, and also it gives more height and drama to the arrangement. So I'd start with, this is perfect, like a pickle jar, and then you might also want to get a couple of little jam jars or even little jugs. I prefer going to little antique shops and buying lots of random little tidbits like jugs, jars, milk bottles. They're so much fun to work with, and they don't take that many flowers, but they really do bring the English meadow down your tablescapes. After you've got your vessels, you want to lay out your stems into sections. You've got your foliage. Keep the euphorbia. With the foliage, I quite like to have something which has a bit of movement, you know, almost like flops at the side, so that it's not always so up straight. It's literally like bringing the countryside into a vase. Now that I've got my foliage works as the structure, and if you get the structure right, then everything else becomes so easy and you can literally place your flowers in whichever way you want, but you need your structure as the base. So you get your foliage stems, and with these stems you want to cut them at an angle. Oh, it's really woody one, so and you want to split them. And the reason why you do this is so that it basically soaks up as much water as possible. And with woody stems, you really do need to cut quite high up in order to really draw up that water. So I'm going to get two bits first. So you want to cut your foliage at the end at an angle and split. Then, I think the best way to learn this is by doing a crisscross. So you want to literally get two pieces of foliage, cross them over and place them in. And what brings the drama is your foliage. Also notice that I've filled up my water to 3/4 of the vase, just to make sure that, like these vases, the stem is getting as much water as possible. Then I get another two pieces of foliage and I crisscross and I place diagonally. And that creates your shape at the beginning. So as you can see just here, you've got the crisscross. So now, as you can see, I've got a little bit of a gap here that I can see from this side. And I'm just gonna, again, always follow the crisscross pattern. Don't ever go off the angle, otherwise that just ruins your shape. And I always like mine a bit wild and wacky and not so compact. So now I've got my foliage, I'm then gonna go in with, I always say, and I say it with my buckets that I deliver to people's doorsteps, you wanna do your large blooms, medium blooms, and your filler blooms. And it goes in that order. So my large blooms would be my peonies. And your large blooms are the blooms that are the arrogant ones. The ones that really, you know, they take up the majority of the vase. You can really see them and you really want them to sort of come at you and really start speaking to you. A couple of alliums, some roses. And what's great about using British flowers, they all grow in their own certain way and the scents are unbelievable. I'm going to go in with my peonies and what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to do an odd numbers and I'm going to still follow my structure. Because you've got the edge of the vase to really rest your bloom on, you don't want to cut them down too short. Also, if you are cutting, you want to always cut at an angle. But you don't want to cut them down too short because you've got such a big vase underneath that you want to keep that height, always following your crisscross. Also, what I love with these coral peonies is that they last for weeks. What's also good is to keep on turning your vase so you know exactly where the gaps are. So I can see there's one here. And now we've got the time, go out and experiment. I mean, I definitely have been. All of our weddings and events have actually been mostly postponed to next year. So I've really spent this time designing and coming up with new ideas and also looking at the way that British flowers, you know, they form and the way that they look and the colours and the scents. And what I've really loved is getting to know lots of British growers. Notice also that I don't bunch the flowers together. There is a way that you can group them, 3s and 5s, but I quite like them to each have their own story, each saying their own thing, so I quite like to keep them separate. With your hardier stems, it's quite good to focus those more in the middle and I quite like to have a bit more, you know, architectural lines. So for instance with this allium, I'm really going to let him speak and shout out of the vase. I get another one and I'm going to put him slightly closer. This is what I've got in my garden. You might have something a bit different, but if you don't have this, you know, there's plenty of British growers who are now delivering to people's doorsteps, so, and we are as well. There's still so many options. You don't need to go to the supermarket, start supporting local growers. I've now got my large blooms. I've got a gap here and that's where the cow parsley, which works as a filler flower, comes in perfectly. These filler flowers fill in the gaps of your vase. What's also quite pretty is if you had some sweet peas to really have them coming out and falling out of the vase. And I wish I had those. Keep on adding. In order to keep your stems and everything lasting for as long as possible, just every 2 days cut the ends at an angle and it should come back to life. And also don't leave your vase in direct heat because again they'll just wilt. So I'm just having my cow parsley bounce out of the vase. I like to have as much height, and as you can see I haven't used lots of stems, but I've just placed them in like you probably see in the garden. And I'm going to place my Peter in. So your filler flowers are really your last ones. So just fill in those gaps. Keep on turning your vase. One last iris that I'm just going to pop in the middle. The best statement by Gelderose. Again, woody stem, so I'm going to split. This guy is just going to bounce into the middle. So I'm just going to add a euphorbia. I also, having studied in Italy, love to have a bit of foliage falling from the vase to create that urn-like shape. There we go. Ta-da! One last thing is you want to take a step back and have a look, and if there's any gaps or anything, you just want to fill it in. So I'd quite like this peony to be showing a bit more. So I'm going to push my bit of foliage down, lift him up, and don't feel like you've got to be really nervous of the stems. You know, they've grown outside, they're used to rain and wind, and they're perfect for your vase.